Every gamer parent worries about that day. You try to keep your kids away from it. You try to be a good influence on them. Try to steer them towards games like, I don't know, King of Tokyo, Catan Jr. But you can't watch your child every minute. Then someone, one of their friends, even family, introduces them to it. You're never prepared for that day. We were visiting family. My daughter went off to play with her cousins, both 10 years her senior. They introduced her to it. They introduced her to Monopoly. When we returned home, she asked me if I'd play it with her. As a parent, what can you do?
Over 800 parents a day succumb to sitting through a game of Monopoly with their children.
Will you be prepared for the day that your child asks you to play the millionaire's monstrosity? The real estate sit and wait? No, you're never prepared.
Join us as we address the issue of childhood Monopoly and provide suggestions on how to prevent game time from becoming lame time. Today, on a very special Growing Up Gamer, Monopoly for Moppets.
Okay, first off, I don't want you to think that I look down my nose at Monopoly. It isn't a bad game, it's just a long game. If someone enjoys playing it, then that's all that matters. And if my daughter wants to play it with me, I'm not going to tell her that it's a bad choice. It's a fine game. However, I don't really think that Monopoly was designed with a kindergartner in mind. That's why we've developed some house rules that condense the game down to a smaller set of rules that are more bite-sized that a kindergartner can digest. We still get the Monopoly experience together without the game becoming a 3-hour economics marathon. In this video, I'll present these alternate rules. Hopefully this will be helpful to anyone who wants to take part in a game of Monopoly with a child who's interested in it, but also still wants to retain most of their afternoon. This is Monopoly for Moppets.
The focus of the game is going to be on counting and adding skills. This will require simplifying many of the numbers that you encounter on the board and on the cards. Here's what we do to accomplish that. Number 1. Only use the $1 bills. I take all of the ones and I split them into 2 equal piles. No, not that way, you idiot. This is each of our starting money. Spent money is placed in the middle of the board. That's the bank. Dice are rolled as normal. 2 dice, the numbers added together. When players earn money, they take it from the middle of the board. Retain the often forgotten auction option. If a player declines to purchase the property that they land on, the other player has the option to purchase it instead. The auction rule gives you better control over which properties you end up with and which ones go to the opposition. When combined with the revised prices for properties and their rents, this approach gives you a little more control over which player receives an advantage. All property values are reduced to just the first number in their price. For example, the purchase price of Connecticut Avenue is reduced from $120 down to $1. All rent values are reduced in the same way, down to their first digit. Note that this drastically changes how lucrative some of the properties are. For example, Pennsylvania Avenue, usually one of the higher-end properties, will now have a purchase price of $3 and rent of $2. But lonely little Connecticut Avenue will now have a purchase price of $1 and pay out $8 in rent. The prices on the Chance and Community chest cards are handled mostly the same way, only the first digit is used. Some of the more complicated cards, like the Urban Renewal ones, are either simplified or skipped, depending on Daddy's mood that day. The alternate free parking rule, where the player receives any money that's been placed in the middle of the board, is not used. If a player runs out of money, then they can give the other players the properties that they own to cover their debts. When doing this, the property's rent price is usually used as their trade value. When a player is out of money and properties, the game is over.
One rule that I haven't completely pinned down is how to handle houses and hotels. In games that we've played, I never purchase them just to keep things simple. My kitty competitor invests in houses and hotels sometimes, and when she does, I usually let her make the rule about it. My house rule for house rules has simply been to go with whatever my offspring opponent comes up with. It's actually kind of nice to see what she thinks of. Games usually take 25 to 45 minutes, which I find totally palatable, and it results in some really good father-daughter game time. I hope our Monopoly for Moppets rule set provides you with a framework that you can use to share just the right amount of Monopoly time together. Was that fun? Yes. Okay, let's go do anything else. Was that fun? Yes! All right.